I'll look to the clerks to let me know when we are streaming. All right. All right, I call to order this special meeting of council for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. First, turning to Land Acknowledgement, I want to speak to a groundbreaking that was recently done for the new water treatment plant number 2, formerly known as Pump House number 2. There was a pipe ceremony held with the Stonies, and I have to say that the more and more that we work together and that we have these opportunities to be together, the more and more there's a sense of relationship and camaraderie, and there was a real true appreciation by all involved that we were going through that experience together. And so I just really appreciate that. And in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I acknowledge that we are gathered in the heart of Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. This land is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations, also the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and our most adjacent Indigenous neighbors, the Stoney Nakoda, comprised of the Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and Chiniki First Nations. Further, we are located within the Rocky View Métis District within the Battle River Territory, which is District 4. The town of Canmore remains committed to working to live in right relations and to advance truth and reconciliation as we acknowledge the many Indigenous peoples whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. I am grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. As we are all treaty people, we each have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor all life. As for item A2, agenda, are there any changes to the agenda today? Seeing none, I'll move approval of the agenda for April 23rd, 2024, special meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, and we'll go right to G1, bylaw approval. And here we are dealing with the revised land use bylaw amendment 2024-04, Three Sisters Village Phase 1 and Three Sisters Village Phase 1 conceptual scheme. Mr. Weldon, or is it Mr. Schneider who is presenting? Oh, sorry about that. Mr. Schneider, welcome. And has your official duties commenced?
It has not.
Not yet.
I remain a humble senior development planner.
Okay, and when does that change over?
It will be May 13th.
May 13th. All right. Well, I just want to, at this point, and I'll probably do it again, express the appreciation to Mr. Weldon for stepping in as the interim, and Mr. Schneider letting you know that we are really pleased that you are going to be taking the position as well. We have some very strong resources here in the town. We thank you for doing that, and we thank you, Mr. Weldon, for all your work. So please proceed whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The staff report, along with a number of attachments, is with council. This is the next step in a series of review and approvals with respect to the Three Sisters Village area structure plan implementation. As council is aware, there was the decision of the LPRT and direction from the 1992 NRCB decision. Basically, the Court of Appeal ruling, and then the town adoption of both area structure plans in late 2023. That basically brings us to where we are today, but we still have the applicability, and if there's legal questions about this, Mr. Driedzik is present. He has also contributed to the staff report in giving an opinion on how Section 619 applies to this particular hearing. However, one of the things that we had to do with our review is consider the submitted land use bylaw amendments for consistency with the 1992 decision and work within a 90-day time period. There is an allowance that we could extend that decision out. The schedule of review and meetings, providing revised documents from the applicant was basically agreed to between administration and the developer. And as opposed to 90 days, we're here at about 115 days following declaring the application complete. So both sides have worked very diligently to ensure that concerns are met, and that we have a strong application that we can then bring towards subdivision. And I'll show you the continuum of approvals in a couple of moments. To summarize the application, what Council has in front of them today is 4 components to a land use bylaw amendment. 2 are specific land use districts within the R3 and R4, an overlay to speak to specific land use regulations within the area structure plan area, and another overlay to implement a density bonusing scheme that's for residential development and basically implements a section of the area structure plan, which is referred to within the ASP as the bonusing toolkit. So everything generally lines up with what was in the area structure plan before. As well, there is a conceptual scheme application, and then we're looking at again the need for 619 and conformity to the earlier 1992 decision. Conceptual scheme is a new tool that has actually existed within the town for about 3 years, but it hasn't been used until this specific application. Conceptual schemes are used in urban and rural municipalities. There's quite a few in southern Alberta. In urban municipalities such as Calgary, Airdrie, Okotoks, Cochrane, they're known as outline plans. Sometimes conceptual schemes are used more within the rural municipalities, but it's basically the same thing. It's a non-statutory plan that seeks to bridge an area structure plan to, and a subdivision. It provides greater detail and analysis than what was provided at the ASP stage, and it really allows for a number of large issues to be looked at and discussed prior to a subdivision application being considered. It's not a statutory plan. It's something that's adopted by simple motion of council through a majority vote. The town does have a conceptual scheme directive, which basically describes the process as I've just spoken to it, but it also lists a number of supplementary studies that need to be submitted with a conceptual scheme overall document, and these have been submitted by the developer along with a number of other studies that may not be applicable within other parts of the municipality. So, for example, undermining reports for information, the location of the wildlife corridor that was approved by the province, and the fence that would delineate that. So that information was all submitted as part of the application. If you look at this, graphic, you'll see that basically what we're doing here is we're moving from a very high-level document with the municipal development plan down through the ASP. The conceptual scheme and the land use bylaw are taken at the same time. And then as we progress further towards development permits and building permits, we're getting more focused on specific areas of the area structure plan. So this is a way of taking something like an ASP, which might be, you know, the equivalent of looking at the land at 20,000 feet to looking at a component or a phase of the area structure plan at 10,000 feet. And then as we drill down into subdivision and then development permits, we get more detailed for specific parcels. So this is the area structure plan in pink for the Three Sisters Village. And then the red hatched area is what was considered for phase one. And this is the area that's being considered for conceptual scheme approval, and also the land use amendment that's before council today. Phase one is approximately 29 hectares or 72 acres, just west of the Three Sisters Parkway and the built-up development around Deergas Gate and other streets within that area. And it will consist of multiple unit residential parcels, a stormwater management facility, municipal reserve, and identified environmental reserve as well. And these are the general parcels to be meted out at the subdivision stage. Now this graphic shows the proposed land use, which is colored in, and it also shows the existing land use that's there today. So the R3, the public district, the environmental district, those will be replacing the existing land use. And once approved, this is what the land use map will look like. Council will note that within the submitted districts, that the R3 and the R4 have a letter D with a blank and a letter B with a blank. And what that's intended to do is it provides a framework for applying density and bonusing through the bonusing overlay to each specific parcel, but that will vary from parcel to parcel. So as you can see on the land use map, the R3 has a density of 50 units per hectare and has the ability to apply 74 units for potential bonusing within that area, or 74 units per hectare, excuse me. This is a minor departure, and I'll just...
Is that the density go up to 74 or an additional 74?
It goes to an additional 74.
So it could go up to 124 total?
Potentially.
Okay.
It'll basically depend on what's submitted at the development permit stage, and there's rules and a guiding implementation framework within the bonusing overlay. This expression of density in units per hectare is something that administration are familiar with. However, I will note that the area structure plan bonusing toolkit expresses density in floor area ratio, which is a little bit more appropriate in higher density districts, and could potentially be looked at in future phases of the development. But when we're looking at things like townhouses, stacked townhouses, things that are contemplated within the R3 or even within R4 apartment building type units, expressing density as a function of the area, the hectareage of a property is definitely appropriate.
I should just note for council that there will be an opportunity to not only ask questions of Mr. Schneider following the presentation, but the applicant is here as well, and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions if they're specific. So
Yep,
Yeah.
that's correct. I was actually about to
Yeah.
introduce Mr. Ollenberger and Ms. Carpat,
Yeah.
but so these are the recommendations within the staff report that council give first and second reading to the amending land use bylaw, give leave to go to third reading for the amending land use bylaw, and finally third reading of the amending land use bylaw. And then as a fourth recommendation separate, that council adopt the conceptual scheme for Three Sisters Village Phase 1. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. And just for clarity around the conceptual scheme, that's not considered a statutory document, is it?
No, Mr. Mayor. It's an accompanying guiding document.
Contains more detail than an ASP.
but it's
helps,
definitely
yeah.
non-statutory.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so looking to members of council for any questions with respect to what's before us today. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here in the persons of Mr. Ollenberger and Ms. Carpat. Welcome. And so I will kick things off just on the question I was asking, and I was just wondering if I could ask also the applicant around densities. I was just wondering if there's, what's your understanding of how those densities will manifest?
So thank you, Mayor Crossert. I also want to thank administration for their hard work on this application. It was good conversations, a lot of collaboration in order to get us here today, and I just want to recognize that. With regards to density, the D and B numbers, the D relates to the 3,000 units within the ASP, and those units are distributed on a lot-by-lot basis.
Okay.
And that limits it to the 3,000 units that have been identified in the ASP without going over. And then the B is related to the bonusing, and that distributes that additional 2,000 units, so a total of 5,000, that developers could bonus up to. So it is an up to number, it is a maximum, and it cannot be relaxed.
Okay, so is that 74 being referred, is that, do you understand it to be a max for that area?
That is a maximum.
Because I was wondering if, based on the ranges that I'd seen before, it seemed to be quite a jump, so, okay, that I appreciate.
Yeah, it is a maximum.
Okay. And I probably worded my question awkwardly to Mr. Snyder, and so that would be good clarity, thank you. Looking to council to see if there are questions. Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Mayor Crousert. Thank you, Ms. Carpat, Mr. Ollenberger, and the presentation from admin. Within the conceptual scheme, there was some more information around the wildlife fence, and I think a commitment by the province around that. My question is, will the whole fence for the village area be built in phase 1? And then is the province then committed to monitor, repair, and maintain the fence into the future as well? Or has that been decided?
Sorry, I have a graphic that I can point out.
Okay, perfect.
So in answer to your question, the entire fence for phase 1 will be built concurrently with construction. And that phase 1 fence is identified throughout, so all around the Three Sisters Village area, structure plan area, through the Stewart Creek Golf Course, and then up and down through golf course, kind of close to Hole 10 or the maintenance compound, if you're familiar with that location, for Stewart Creek. And then it goes down the south end of Stewart Creek Phase 3, and then around the eastern boundary, and then connecting to the highway fence.
Okay, perfect.
If I can add, there's an element to that fence that is temporary. if and when Smith Creek Phase 1 comes forward, that fence would then go around Smith Creek Phase 1, but that also requires the wildlife underpass underneath the Trans-Canada Highway to be in place. And to follow up on your question, once the warranty period has expired on the fence, then the province would take over its maintenance and enforcement obligations, signage, gates, things like that. The gates and the fence allow them the opportunity to seasonally close some trails if necessary and post that kind of signage, and it helps with their enforcement. Yeah, so that's where I'll close with that. But so right where the big metal gate is in Stewart Creek Phase 3 at the east end, it would go across there, but that's a temporary basis until Smith Creek proceeds forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So, and just on the fence, I believe through the wildlife management plan, the idea is that there would be continual monitoring of wildlife movement to determine if there's any adverse impact due to the fence, which could then be addressed at that date should it need to be addressed. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah. So Mayor Crossart, we have recommenced monitoring since 2022. Those monitoring mimics the same methodology as the provincial methodology. And so we are monitoring kind of for the items within the environmental impact statement that were deemed to be of some risk. And so we're making sure that that risk is mitigated through the mitigations of the development. Sorry, there was some other question. So it was the monitoring.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting to is, and I'm really happy that the fence is being built first before there's a ton of buildings, because I guess in theory, well, I mean, I guess what you would hope is that the corridors being correct, the biologists being correct around the fencing and everything, that there shouldn't be a significant adverse impact on the wildlife movements. But should the monitoring determine that there is, then there's an opportunity to address it in some form, whether it be a different placement of the fence or something else.
Yeah. So the monitoring and adaptive management plan allows us, through the monitoring, make adaptation should we see that the predictions within the EIS are not as what we thought or as predicted. And so we are able to make those changes. And those changes are outlined with within a report, or kind of the process for making those changes are outlined within a report called the Monitoring and Adaptive Management Plan. Yeah. And that plan has been accepted by the province. The town has an opportunity to look at that plan and has made some minor amendments to it. And we believe that it kind of identifies how the province, the town, and Three Sisters will be working together to make sure that wildlife movement is sustained through the corridor.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Graham.
Thank you. And just for clarity, along 742, will that be fenced as well?
Along through the Councillor Graham, do you mean the parkway?
Yes.
It will not be fenced along the parkway. It goes across the parkway into the river.
Thank you.
On the west side.
Thank you.
It goes across the parkway through a Texas gate. It's not actually a fence across
Right.
the asphalt.
Yes.
So, but we are closing that loop.
My apologies.
Yes.
I should have been clearer.
Not across or through a Texas gate.
We're not putting a fence
Along
on the
the side.
parkway.
Right.
Thank you.
And then from the river towards town, it will eventually be all fenced by the province with their recent announcement of the exclusionary fencing there. Okay. Okay, great. Looking to other questions from council. Okay, and thank you very much. I guess I would like to just ask administration if, based on anything that the applicant has provided, if there are any comments that you would want to make in regards to any of those questions.
Just with respect to ongoing, there will be a committee struck with provincial developer and town officials. From the town side, that will be led by Ms. Van Gaal.
Okay, great. And that committee will be focused on the wildlife?
Yeah, the ongoing maintenance of the fence.
Okay.
And good things like that.
Great, great. Thank you. Any questions before I start putting motions on the table? Okay, so I want to, you're okay, Councillor Graham? Okay. All right, so I just want to, as set out in the report, and as we know, I just want to set the context for approvals pursuant to Section 619 because they're a little bit different than the normal. We have situations where a provincial body has made a decision, and that's actually quite a normal thing for the province to determine certain things will be decided by the province and other things can be decided by the municipality. And then when something is aligned with that decision by a provincial body, then the municipality would follow suit because you can't have two decision makers on the same matter. So Section 619 is an exception to our usual rules in which we do not have discretion around things that are aligned. And so that is one thing that we keep in mind, that there's an obligation for the town in order to meet our legal obligations. We have to vote accordingly. The other change with regards to this vote is that we do have councillors that previously recused themselves, but through assessment, given the level that we're now at, it's not determined to be a pecuniary interest that would require their recusal from voting. So, with that context in place, I will now move the council give first reading to revised land use bylaw amendment 2024-04, Three Sisters Village Phase 1. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move that council give second reading to revised land use bylaw amendment 2024-04, Three Sisters Village Phase 1. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll move that council give leave to go to third reading of revised land use bylaw amendment 2024-04, Three Sisters Village Phase 1. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And I'll move that council give third reading to revised land use bylaw amendment 2024-04, Three Sisters Village Phase 1. I would like to just say a few words in speaking to this motion. I do appreciate the work that has been done by all involved to, first of all, deal with our first conceptual scheme and the collaborative efforts to meet the timelines. And I recognize while we're outside the 90 days, that was always done in communication, and it was for good reasons. One, I think each side benefited from the actual time that it took, and so I appreciate those efforts. I also appreciate what has come forward as having some good sound development that will benefit our community. And so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Oh, Councillor Ma, I'm sorry. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's out of sequence because it's a different process. I'm not going to comment on the proposal itself, but I did want to give a personal thank you to Mr. Weldon for taking on the heavy lift of this project. There's a lot of hours. It's a big move. Thank you. And Mr. Schneider for coming in as well. Thank you, team.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Ma. And now I'll move that council approve the conceptual scheme for Three Sisters Phase 1 as presented. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now I will move that we adjourn the special meeting of council. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.